Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I am Nathaniel, your host for today, and I'm really pleased to invite our special guest, Jacqueline Pirtle, who is also known as the Freaky Healer. She's a best-selling author, an energy healer, and I love this term, joy alchemist. Has been working in the field for over 30 years, helping people with soul work and getting aligned energetically. I mean, you've written more than 18 books, Jacqueline, to help women and their families to align to who they really are and to live happy lives. I think, your transformational work, helping people. I love this, going from May to into magnetic joy. I mean, that's just, there's so much packed in there. I'm really eager to get into conversation with you, but I'd love to just invite you to let our listeners know more about who you are and why do you do what you do.
Yeah, hey Nathaniel, thank you so much for having me. And
Our
I,
pleasure.
I mean, I love your work. I do. I love your work and your podcast and what you guys stand for, because to me, it really is the future, right? We're so invited, especially in this time. I mean, we've been always invited, but I
Mm,
think the movement is really showing us that we're invited to really go deep within
mm,
and live aligned with who we are, and also realize that there is more to us than just our bodysuit.
mhm,
And that's just a role we're here to play, but actually that there's so much more, and to really dig deep into that, because I truly believe that in everyone, that bigger, that more, in everyone, it really sits this brilliance in there. And I think that when somebody is really not finding their way, or living a life that they don't love, or even making choices that are not really on a physical life level
mm.
called on the good side, right? Because energetically speaking, it's just is, right? It's all neutral. It's just a role you're playing. And I think that when people learn that they're actually more, and they step into that brilliance, you can call it into their soul, you can call it into their consciousness, you can call it into their God-given essence, whichever really it is, because it's just this one big amazing thing, energy, right?
Mm.
When they step into it, they will see that actually they can overcome pretty much anything, if there is even anything to overcome, because ultimately in physical life level, it's just a role, it's just
Mhm.
something they experience, but it's all created from within. And my mission and my gift and of reading energy, and for me everything is always energy. That's what I
Mhm.
see and sense and hear and understand every time as a first thing, right? I meet a person, it's energy. I listen to music, it's energy. I eat food, it's energy. And I read the information in it, and through that I can shift and heal. And I've been in this field, yeah, since a little child, really. And yeah, so I think my mission is really to just show everyone that they're more and than their physical body, and also what that brilliance really is, because it's for everyone a little bit different. And once they step into it, I tell you, Nathaniel, it's the most amazing thing for me to experience, to help somebody understand who they really are. Because after that, they're like, you can't keep them back anymore. It's just, it just goes. And to me, it has power. And especially when you teach that already to young children.
Mm.
So I've also written and worked all along with children too, because to
Beautiful.
me it's like, wow, if you can show a child that's already so much more connected than an adult, if
Mm.
you can show that child that everything is actually going really well, and if you can educate and show the parents
Mm.
to kind of move with that, it's just brilliant. So yeah.
Wow. There's so much beauty in what you shared there, Jacqueline. I feel like, it's the greatest gift that we can give another, to be a reflection of the miraculous being that they truly are. I feel like every master who has come to the planet, often at great personal, cost in terms of some of the experiences some of them have endured, to share that truth. It speaks to the power, I believe, of love, that there's this undying, eternal, unconditional power behind all of us that simply wants us um, to remember that it's there and to come home to it and to live from that place. And I love that you've worked with children because I feel like one of the most powerful things that we can do, aside from helping folks to awaken and remember who they are, is also to help prevent the forgetting of happening in the first place. Because the little ones come in with such a presence and knowing. Like our little daughter, when she was born, like the presence in her eyes, like she knew who I was. She was, she knew who she was. She was just pure light and just pure love. And I feel like most of us get conditioned and indoctrinated into other systems, and then we have to go through a more of an unlearning process than anything. So I love that you've been doing this work for so long, and that's quite prolific. I mean, most people haven't written one book. You've written many, many books. What has your journey been like? Because we're in a time of great transformation, and you've clearly seen like probably some shifts in terms of people generally awakening. You've been on this path for a while. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey and yeah, what brings
Yeah,
you
of
to where
course.
you are today?
Yeah, of course. It's like one thing that I'd like to say is like when you say this unlearning, I actually look at it as like remembering.
Hmm.
It's like, remember who you really are, the promise you gave to yourself when you said, I'm going to do this physical life. Because you chose to come here,
Yeah.
and you chose to come from energy that is like you can, energy into like the physical body, which is also energy, but it's just like it's in matter, in the
Hmm.
3D world. And you always knew who you were. It's just kind of like you need to remember again, but that's also called life, right? It's
Hmm.
like when somebody said to me, Jacqueline, how did I get here? Well, how did I really get here in this, right? I said, well, you didn't get here by accident. It's life.
Hmm.
It's what you're here to do. You
Yeah.
kind of, you came in with these promises and knowing what you're here to do. And then you loaded yourself with all these experiences and whatnot. That's called life, right? And now you're in the remembering phase. You haven't forgotten. It's not new. Like when people say like, oh, I need to find myself. Find what? Because it's more like a remembering.
Yeah.
And I always say, right, you know what? The matter of fact is like you're running after that. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And right when you say, oh, I know who I am, you forget again because, or you go like, no, actually that was not it, because life is like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's more like a remembering who you really are and realizing that what you're in this 3D world as a physical body, it's just a role you're playing. And there's this bigger part of you, right? And my journey has always been like that. It's like it's just from little on, like it's always been very living in the imaginary world and very living in my own bubble, that everything is just, I know who I am. And some call me lucky, right? Because even as a little child, I just never lost that. But I have to tell you, it's like, I mean, in growing up in my physical world, there was physical abuse, there was sexual abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was like all these events happen, and somehow I just stuck with it, and they called me the daydreamer and unrealistic and naive and whatnot. However, it's actually the other way around, because I just stuck with, somehow naturally, I just stuck with just being me. It's not affecting me in me, who I really am, right? And that gave me practice, right? It's like my backpack is filled with that. So yeah, so the journey is when you come into this world, whatever you're experiencing, this is your journey. And it's really okay to say, through the physical eyes, that was not okay. Absolutely. It's horrible and whatnot. However, then remember that who I really am, the bigger part, is just life. It's like, and you have that backpack filled. And instead of carrying that backpack in front of me and saying, oh my gosh, this is all that happened to me, and living constantly through that, I threw my backpack on my back, having a backbone. This is who I am. And that's why I am doing what I am doing. And that's why I am helping people, right? It's because through all that. So yeah, and then my journey was just like, I always thought everyone is the same, you know, they all see like everything is energy, and they all just see through people and tell
Yeah.
people what's going on in them without them even speaking, whatnot. And then at some point I'm like, realize, wait a minute, that's not everyone. And I think the outer world just didn't really know what to do with me, so I was just
Mhm.
kind of like, you know, yeah, it's like also like, you know, years back when I was born, it was just different, not so outspoken. And so yeah, I was on the weird side. And then at some point I just loved following that path, following that knowing, and then really educating myself spiritually too. And I have a bunch of holistic living diplomas, whatnot. And yeah, so and then it just kind of like, I followed my heart, I followed what I was told to do, what I
Mhm.
really felt. And that's why I think it's so important that somebody kind of knows or gets to know themselves, who they
Mhm.
are, because that's what I did. And look
Mhm.
where I'm at now, right?
Mhm.
And it's, I love my work, it's not even work, it's who I am.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like yeah, at some point then my first book idea came, and it was New Year's Eve, sitting together with really good friends. And I said, oh, let's all do this. Like, what are we going to focus on next year? Right. And everyone came up with these grand ideas, and they're like looking at me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write about happiness every single day. I was already deep in my
Mhm.
spiritual work and holistic healing and all that. I had a practice, saw people and whatnot. And I said, I'm going to write every day about happiness. And they're looking at me like, really? I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. They're like, well, you're perfect for that. And so that's what I did. And then, you know, that's it. January 1st, I started writing, putting it on my blog, and the
Mm.
blog was really read and people loved it. I'm like, oh, that's another avenue I can really inspire people. And then at some point, I said, you know what? When I did that year, I'm going to make a book out of it. And then the year was kind of like ending, and they're like, so where's your book? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's true. Right. So, and then I literally went through it and said, okay, I'm going to do this because this is great work. And then April of 2018, my first book, 365 Days of Happiness, was born. And it's to this day the flagship book. It's worldwide, you know, over 20,000 people have read it, and I've created
Beautiful.
a journal with it, and it just shifts people. It really, really does. And then I thought, okay, I'm done with the book thing. I mean, I'm not really here to be an author. I'm here to be an energy healer, and, you know, reading energy and that, all of that kind of stuff, service, right?
Mhm.
And then, you know, that big voice said, no, you're not done, you know, here's your next idea. Here's your next idea. Here's your next idea. And that's, it's literally just, I'm a vessel for this, and I'm channeling it. I'm letting it come through. And then, you know, 18 plus books later, and some are journals, right? 30-day journals, 80, to get you to who you are.
Mhm.
And then children book and everything. And it's like, it's just expanding. And even
Mhm.
this year, I have a bunch of plans. So it's just something I enjoy. It's something I know I'm here to do. And it's part of my work of teaching people energy, but also reading energy for them. So it's like, to me, it's like, it's just something I have to do. Like, I'm devoted enough to myself of who I'm here to be, that I know that is, I have to do this. I really
Yeah.
do. There's no other way.
Yeah. Wow. Well, your energy is certainly contagious, Jacqueline. I really admire your passion. And I also want to thank you for listening. You know, I feel like it really is it's a beautiful teaching when you can be around someone who has listened to those voices. Because, you know, it's like Neil Donald Walsh wrote
Oh,
about in Conversations with God, right? It's like God's talking to all of us all the time, but it's who's listening, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so thank you for listening. You know, I feel like despite some of the you know, the shadows that you've gone through that you wear now on your back. And I love how you refer to it as building your backbone and giving you the experience that you need to be of service in the way that you came here to be. I feel like there's such a profound lesson in that, because I feel like so many old souls, for lack of a better word, come to Earth, and all the density that it does exist here, the ego drive does create, I think, is the only thing that creates problems in our world, is essentially selfishness that sees itself as separate. And there's a purpose in that. Otherwise, you know, consciousness as a whole would not exercise this, you know, individuation process. Like there's lots of gifts in it. And when we can really take full ownership of our responsibility of our experiences, and then take responsibility for being happy, for being who we are, I feel like that changes the world. It's like that's such a powerful seed of unconditional love that you've planted. And look at the flowering of all these beautiful gifts that are now emerging. And I love how you talk about like all these new plans are coming out. We share a lot of in common, both Julia and I with you. You know, we've had our difficulties of life. Like for me, I started getting my silvers when I was 13 in the education indoctrination programs, and I knew, and I've worked in professional education, and I've done all this kind of community building work to really get a good frame, because I feel like my part of my purpose is building bridges between conscious communities, and that's between conscious educators and parents like yourself and other community builders, and really like we're in a really interesting time, I think. A prophetic time. Almost every indigenous culture has talked about these times of great awakening. You know, Christ talked about these times. Like it's a time where we are here to remember who we are, so that we can rise and shine our gifts together. And I feel like there are pioneers such as yourself who have held the held that center of who they are, and literally anchor a higher level of consciousness, and it ignites in the people you meet. Like I love that 365 days of happiness. So on that note, what is happiness? What does that mean to you, Jacqueline?
Well, happiness, like everything else, is an energy.
Mm.
It's the thing is to me, in the physical life, you know, in a 3D world, when you say happiness, everyone kind of knows what it is. You know, and some then say like, oh, excuse me, I don't have happiness, or it's hard or whatnot. But excuse me, ultimately everyone has something, you know, everyone knows happiness, right? So if sometimes you say bliss, I use the word bliss in my work a lot too, and people say, what is that, you know? So they have a kind of like a sort of kind of bliss kind of. So to me, it's really profound when I use the word happiness, because everyone understands it, right? And you want to grasp everyone somewhere where they understand that word or what I'm saying. And then I meet people where they're at. Yeah. Because it's very important to me. If I say the word bliss, then I'm expecting somebody that may not have, they kind of know, but they don't really understand, or they don't know what it means for them, for instance. So I expect them to come to that. It's not a level, but to that place. And when I say happiness, it means that I can meet everyone where they're at. Because to me, my work is I meet you where you're at. Nothing is wrong. Nothing needs to be fixed. Everything is going perfect, right? It's like, just take a deep breath and let's breathe a minute and stop everything. And then I meet you where you're at. And then we can talk about your happiness, because it's different for everyone. But ultimately, that's on a physical life level. And what is happiness? It's an energy. You know, it's an energy, it's a feeling, it's a thought, it's a whatever you want it to make it be, but it's something that most people strive for. It's a lot of people that think they can't really get to it, right? Which is completely not true, because it's an energy. All you got to do is set yourself into it. And happiness to me is like this big house. It kind of like just has everything in it, right? But ultimately, what is happiness? It's an energy. What is sadness? It's an energy. Ultimately, in energy and consciousness. And you mentioned Neil, our good friend Neil. I love him.
Me too.
And yeah, I just love him. And ultimately, it's just energy. There's nothing different. You know, you can be rich and poor. It's the same thing. It's energy. It's all energy. Money is energy. It's all health and unhealth. It's all energy. So when I work with people, and when I work in my field, and when I write books and I look at happiness, to me, it's something that everyone kind of gets a feeling out of, and then I can meet the people where they're at, and we work from there, right? And it's most people would love to have happiness, you know. And even when people say, oh, happiness, 365 days of happiness, like every day, that is insane. That means you actually probably need to go see a doctor, right? That's what they're telling me. You probably need to see a therapist, or go on medication, whatnot. And because it reacts something in them. So then I can go in and then work from there. From my own professional view and spiritual view and from where I actually really come, which is energy, it's just energy.
That's
You
beautiful.
know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that very much. And it's interesting, people's perception, because I think a term like energy can meet or like a term like, well, energy also, but a term like happiness can mean different things to different people. And when I think, I really appreciate you talk about that distance, because yeah, bliss, most people maybe have not experienced a state of bliss or wouldn't know that that is it. Maybe they don't have the remembrance of being like really, babies and just in a state of, pure presence and being. But happiness, I feel like it's more relatable, definitely, because people not only wish it for themselves, but they wish it for their loved ones. Yeah, I think, all parents want their children to be happy. We talk about happiness a lot. And it's interesting too, this concept that you can't be happy all the time. In my experience, even in deep sadness and grief, you can still choose happiness. And that reminds me of a book by Barry Neil Kaufman. I'm not sure if you've read it. It's called
Yeah.
Happiness is a Choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it just I read that book really opened my mind when I was in college studying Indigenous wellness actually, and he talked about the profound experiences of other people who have transformed health conditions through this lens of looking at the choice of happiness. And he mentioned, well, he goes in depth actually about his son being born with extreme autism, and him and his wife basically putting everything else aside and entering that child's world, who they were told would never really amount to anything in our world because he was just too profoundly autistic. And what they found is by entering into his world, they could start to communicate about the larger 3D world that we're talking about. And he ended up becoming like a star athlete and a star academic student as well from that level of love. And so I really appreciate what you're bringing to that and how you use that as a window, seeing where the sticky points are. Because it's interesting, we don't always realize too where a lot of our cultural beliefs come from, like in terms of the philosophies behind things, and I think of like was it Milton, or I think no, I think he wrote about property. I forget, he wrote Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, and this
Yeah.
idea that we have to pursue happiness, that is something external to us rather than a choice that we make internally and then as an energy go and create from that place. So I love how you talk about it's an
Yeah.
energy that you can use to create thought, to create experiences. Like it's like a place you come from and then manifest externally from.
Yeah, and I always say, like, you are happiness. Like, that was one of the biggest
Mhm.
things about 365 days of happiness. When you go through these passages every day, it's not about jumping on a trampoline every single day or eating chocolate cake and just being like over the moon or going shopping and whatnot. No, it's actually about one passage, for instance, is like about driving by, and it's actually a personal story, driving by to bring I don't remember, kids to school or something, sports or whatnot.
Mm.
And you're tired, you're like you're like, you just slap some clothing on because you had to just get out of the house, and then you're sitting in the car, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even really take care of myself yet every day then, or when I drove by, there was this castle type house. And then so I just drove by and saw that castle and pretended I lived there in my driving by, and this imaginary, groundedness, right? And then see myself all dressed up and the way I wanted to feel and all that. And it just made me happy. So nothing was okay, nothing really was in when you say in your physical reality looked like that, right? But in me, in my imagination, in my energy, as who I really am, I was living in that castle. I was driving by, waving at home, and all the servants, they're cleaning, they're making my food, and there's a fire going. Whatnot. And it's like these passages in the book are about things like that.
Mm.
Or like one is like you're a professional chooser, because a lot of people say, I can't choose. I don't know. I can't choose. No, you're actually a professional chooser,
Mm.
You do choose to go to the bathroom. You do choose to go get yourself some water. You even choose to put socks on. It's like, and I think it's this normal realization about that actually you're already everything that you already want to be. You are already. It's just we're thinking choosing maybe a bigger thing, living somewhere different, but it starts with little daily things you're already doing automatic. And what it really does is it like you said so beautifully, even in sadness, you can be happy. Because when you're really crying and you're really sad and you're really hurting, the cleansing and the fact that you're a human being, that you're able to feel that much pain and sadness, it's so beautiful. And that is happiness. So to me, you are happiness. Happiness is you. Like, you're never separate.
Mm-hmm.
You're never separate. And that's what this inward, you got to go inward, because if you say, well, yeah, but I look at all this reality out there, war and fight and da. Well, that's the golden thing is don't. You can be aware of it. That's fine. You don't have to be in denial. Be aware of it and then go inward and solve it inwardly, because that's literally where your most biggest power is.
Yeah. Well, and that is the change that we talk about a lot, right? And it's very interesting. I don't know if I've told you about the Christ letters and some of my own journey, Jacqueline. Some people, as soon as they hear the word Christ, they turn off. But if we just look at the essence of that word, you just illustrate it so well. It's like that idea of a Messiah, Savior. When we realize that the internal tools that we have are already within us, that we can choose to focus on what the qualities we want to be and express in this world, we literally are the agents of peace. We are the agents of that expression of love. We are the agents of happiness that evoke and ignite that in others. And it's so interesting because in the Christ letters, which are his expressed autobiography that started flowing through a woman who took notes in the year 2000, there's a whole story to it. But they're the underlying principles of what we practice with in Lightheart Vision in our mission, because he talks about people gathering from all traditions to come together to co-create a world of love and peace, because that is within our ability, our conscious ability, when we put our minds and hearts in that direction, rather than focusing on conflicts and everything. And he actually literally says in letter 1 that this is the beast stalking our lands, is all the media that we're feeding our consciousness all the time, the media of polarization and violence and all these things are not good for our consciousness. We know that it's not good, and yet it is more accessible now than ever. And I feel like this is one of the dichotomies of the age we're in. It's like, it's very easy. I mean, it was not when I was a child. You couldn't turn on a TV and just watch 20 hours of like a show that is jarring and affecting your nervous system. Maybe you'd have like, a half an hour show, and then it would be the news and maybe something else. And you get like breaks, and then there was like 3 or 4 channels, unless you had a satellite dish. And so I feel like we're in this really interesting time where those that wish to awaken to that truth that you're speaking of, that truth that we are happiness, we are love, we are bliss, we are however we want to connect with that underlying reality. And yet it is easier than ever, I would say, to be sucked into the this terrible thing, and whoa, and watch these shows and like, so what is your best guidance for that, for someone who really wants to live from that place that they are happiness, that they are peace? What would you say to?
Yeah, I know, I get that a lot. To be really honest, the thing is like, the reason why it's easy is so we actually can do it, so we can figure out that it's not good for us, so we actually then focus on what's right. Beautiful. To me, there's never anything wrong, and yes, there's a really, really horrific things happening in the world in the 3D level with people. Yes, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking. However, without that, you wouldn't know what you really wanted. It's like there is always a balance needed, right? And to me, it's like, isn't it powerful that you get to do this often until you really realize how it actually is not making you feel any good and how your life is actually going out of control because you're constantly focused on that, because you're creating everything from your thoughts and from your feelings inside. You're literally rolling out your red carpet of your journey of your life constantly, the way you think, the way you feel, the way that. So wouldn't it then be wouldn't it then be that everything in life is a lesson or is something that you can kind of like choose, something that you experience, so then you can choose to expand in it and then calibrate as a better, not even a better version of you, because I don't want to say that, as a true version of you, because you're already the best version if you tune in, right? And you're aligning with that. So that's, I always say, it's alignment all day long. Align with the food that fits, align with the talk that fits, align with, however, you gotta eat, you gotta taste the cheese so you know you don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, you got to eat too much cheese, which I sometimes do from Switzerland, then just to realize, like, you know, and okay, I can't do that anymore. I don't feel so good anymore. So, and then you go, what do I do? You know, you go and detox, and, you know, and then you're like, you know, I don't want to feel that way anymore. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Or just a little bit, you know, and then that power that you have, because you learn how you want to feel by doing this. It doesn't feel good. And then you do something that does feel good. And I think it's so extreme at the moment because the awakening is so big.
Yeah.
You know, isn't like Neville Goddard, I love him too. And he talks about the contrasting, right? Yeah. The more you want something, so the more you want alignment and really being who you are, the more other stuff is going to come your way. That's not like that. Why is that? Because it has to create a stage in which then you can actually experience what you really want to be. He explained it like, I think it was him that explained it. Like, so if you want to be a person of light, you want to be a light worker, you want to be light for everyone. Well, there is going to be, once you say, this is what I want to do, there's going to be a lot of dark around you. Yeah. Guess why? Because then you can actually experience to shine light in this stage of dark. Yeah. Because if everything is light and you say, oh, I want to be light, and everything is already light, you're never going to get the experience to be light. Yeah. You're just going to be light with everyone else or whatever. So, and I thought, like, when I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, right? So do not misunderstand the contrast. Do not misunderstand the easiness, right? The accessibility of all that is out there that's actually not even really getting you closer to you. That is all a help, so you can keep choosing, aligning. And to me, think about it. The power you have when you actually can say, okay, all of this stuff is out there. I'm going to nibble a little. I'm going to be aware of it, right? But it's not going to affect me because I'm aware of it. I see it because I want to see when people are getting killed in the human physical world. I'm not one that goes like that. No, why would I? You know, I'm still here to experience all it. I want to see that. I want to be aware of it so I can actually do something about it. But that's where it stops. Awareness, then I go inward, because inside of me, that's where I'm most powerful. And then I basically, expand and calibrate in that, so I can then go out and create the change. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And actually, that's exactly, he says it very succinctly in the letters. Like, he says, you know, you can be aware of the evils of the world, but don't contemplate them. Don't make them your, like, what you're focusing on. Have the awareness. I mean, it's very easy to be aware, but it is an important distinction. And you have a gift of really making things very approachable and simplifying complex concepts. And also, like, I often describe myself as an eternal optimist, but I feel like you've given me another dimension of that, Jacqueline, because, you know, this idea that things are easy and accessible to give us that direct experience of having that authenticity. I recently wrote a post, I forget which community on school, that, you know, deep shadows allow for bright highlights. And it's exactly what you just said. It's like the world, there is a density here, but we're also part of a larger picture of consciousness that's emerging. And without any polarity, there would be no journey. I mean, it's like without individuation, without the ego drive that is selfish, that thinks it's only of its own needs and is not concerned with anyone else. Without that experience, we wouldn't have the cocoon in which to emerge and allow a higher expression of a self that can soar with one another in new ways and co-create new experiences. And that's where I'd like to ask you about too, this, because, you know, we've talked a lot about the individual's journey, the individual choices. I love that you call it. It's like we're already professional choosers. You know, it's true. You know, and we had another guest who reminded us about Lau Brizuela. She reminded us about receiving. Like, you know, a lot of people are like focused on the things that they might not have yet. But she was reminding us like we're always receiving. You're receiving the water you're drinking, you're receiving the air you're breathing, you're receiving. So it's a similar lens. It's like you are choosing all the time. Just recognize it, own it, and then you can maybe choose from another level of that. So I love that. My question is around, so you've written a lot for like conscious parenting and families, because it's not only about us, right? It's about those we're affecting. And how would you say, as we, reclaim the sense of happiness and joy, sometimes those around us are maybe not choosing the same thing. And like you say, everything's perfect, but also like for those of us who are here who want to make greater impacts, a lot of it's going to be through our relationships. What do you think about when I say like co-creation and really community, and how do we foster this kind of level of awareness in others from your experience?
Well, it starts within, right? It starts with you. You cannot go and try to change somebody, because what do? Like, I'm going to try to change somebody outside in a family or whatnot, and I'm trying to convince them whatnot. What do? I take my focus outward. What do? I go so far away from who I really am. So, and that's why usually then it doesn't feel good. Even if they change, you're still left with that feeling like, kind of like, right? It's like, and that's the thing. It really starts within. Tell you what, you going inward and you choosing your thoughts, you're choosing your feelings, you're choosing your actions. You're just literally like going inward and start become aware and study. I always say you study yourself, meaning that you study yourself as a human being, but then you also study yourself, the self, right? So there is yourself, which is the human being, and then there's the self. That's very different. That's the energy, that's the soul, right? And you put that into like a study, like devote yourself to study all about you. And you study the physical and you study the energetics of who you really are. And you go inward and then you shift, right? It's like, think about it. It's like, so the beliefs, bring the thoughts brings the feeling brings, the habits, right? And then the habits bring the action, and the action brings the manifestation. So you going down that lane, right? So if you're thinking like, okay, that person is really, really bugging me and they're so negative, well, then go back into like, well, how is your habit about them, around them? How are your actions? How are your thoughts? Oh, wait, you already, before you even see them, you don't even see them all day or not even all week, and then you're already thinking, well, they're so negative, right? And then what is your belief about them? So literally see that actually the way you perceive them, you're actually seeing them in that light. They might not even be that way, but you're seeing them, and that's what's going to be presented to you, because that is your reality, because you're it in your reality. You're it. There is nobody else in my reality. It's me, right? So if there's anything outside of me that I don't like, it's me. And then we can say, yeah, but they did that. They said that. They cut me off. They. But it's still me in how I perceive, how I react, how everything. In your reality, you're it. You gotta go inward. And that's where the biggest change can happen. And then when you change, and I see that on me too, right? Every time it's like when you make the switch and you become aware and you study yourself and you study the self of you, right? You literally start shifting. You are changing your beliefs that are kind of like, given to you by when you were a child too and whatnot. We're like sponges, right? So you're changing your belief about stuff. You're changing your thought process. Oh, you feel different about it too. And guess what? Your habits change, and then your actions change. And guess what? Not really, just a tiny little bit time later, because energy loves speed, right? Your reality, what you're actually experiencing, the manifestations change too. So to your thing, where's your power about how you can help shift, change people? It's inside of you.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort on a physical life level to change anything. It takes a lot. Yes, I mean, okay, you're thirsty. Well, on a physical life level, you don't have to go deep inside you if you'd like to. You can go deep inside you, but ultimately you go up, get a glass of water. But even with that glass of water, you can become one with it because it's energy. You can literally program it to put amazing stuff and energy into your body, right? If we want to get really crazy here, but it's true. So go get yourself that glass of water, program it and then drink it. Go get yourself the food. Go do what you need to do. You're tired, go take a nap, right? But all these other things that are like bigger than that, more than just physical stuff, it's all inward. And I always said, actually, just the other day in a group that I was that I'm part of, I shared with them, it's like, to me, when anything is in there in my life that I feel like, hey, a little bit, right? I'm not sure. I stop and realize that I'm actually experiencing and seeing it and acting and all through my physical lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I go into the self of who I am, the bigger part, the energy, the soul, the God essence, whatever you want to call it, if I look through these glasses, what's the problem? What is it? Nothing. It's nothing. And there I can choose. I'm like, oh, that's my little human me that's like going through these classes. No, why would I do that? Because the more I stick in there and trying to fix it there, the more I roll out the red carpet in that direction. And then I'm wondering, like, what is wrong, right? What is my day giving me, right? No, but if I go around, I'm like, oh, no, what's the problem? All it is I'm a little on a line. That's my human little me, right? I'm a little aligned. I'm maybe saying yes to too many things that I don't want to do or something because they're really on a line. All you got to do is you got to realize, wait a minute, I'm going to go this way. I look through these eyes and that's where my solution is. I'm going to align with this. And suddenly over here, what problem? It's so amazing and it goes so fast. And this is not like, some say woo stuff, right? It's not. It's quantum physics has proven it, right? And it's been out there, since so many years and whatnot. And what it comes down to is focus.
Yeah.
You have to really commit and really focus. You can't go, I focus a little in the morning, meditate 10 minutes, and then I'm going to go back and being like grouchy and, and gossipy and get all mad at everything. Well, you can't do that. You have to literally commit to be that. That's going to be your identity. You have to embody it and you're going to be that. And that takes time in the sense of, I'm not saying 10 minutes a day or no, it takes you. It takes that you literally slow down and give yourself time to be. Because in the being, you can actually feel it. You can actually align. And that's what I mean with it takes time.
Yeah.
But when you do it, it's immediate in the physicality. It's immediate.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like changing perception is it is everything. And when you can see life from that greater perspective of who you really are, I agree with you. And I really appreciate you expounding on this because I feel like this can be a sticky point and there's a lot of opportunities for spiritual bypass within it. So I feel like really getting real. It's like, well, how are you thinking about that person that's bothering you? This acronym for evil came to me many years ago, because I was contemplating like, well, and this was the same question that Yeshua had, before he wanted to get enlightened. It's like, why is there poverty and sickness in the world and all this and this idea, I think that the ego can be like we talk about the gross things that can start wars and all this stuff, but all on a very subtle level, like you talked about so succinctly and so beautifully. Like when we're judging someone, that's an imposition. You're saying, "Oh, that person's an idiot." Well, you're casting your perception of that person, and they're probably, and like you said, you're going to evoke things that are from them. You're going to demonstrate. Yep. And then and I'm a reflection of you, and you're an idiot too, and we can all be idiots if we want. But like, like we can. I mean, we have that available.
Sometimes we are, right?
Yeah, well,
like
exactly.
But you know, the important part is to realize when you call somebody an idiot, they're only an idiot in your reality.
Exactly.
In their reality, they're
Yeah.
not. So you literally just created that inside of you for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and I also say that, listen, we all need to lighten up a little bit, because I feel like self-help and soul work and personal growth, it was a lot of times, and I'm probably going to get in trouble with this, but it was a lot, like for many, many years, it was all about like heavy.
Yeah.
You know, heavy, go deep, go heavy, go little, and then also like, you know, follow the guru.
Yeah.
And listen, I never bought into that. There is no guru. To me, there is no guru. You're the guru for you. You're it in your reality. And all of my work comes from being a little bit light about it and have a little humor and go a little. It doesn't have to be so hard. And yes, we are allowed to laugh and we're allowed to mess up and whatnot, and then go backwards, you know, like align again and have a little fun, because ultimately we're literally here to enjoy and to be happy and feel good, even when things don't look so good, because you have that control. And then to learn, you know, to really learn and to stay light and realize that you don't have to follow anybody. You don't even have to follow me, because the thing is what's so important to me is that honestly, I'm just helping you to go home to you.
Yeah.
But I have actually nothing to do with it, because you're going home to you and you know best. And I think most people think, or so many people think, they don't know. No, you do. You really do. And I think that's important.
I agree. And I think it is important to have, you know, a guide, a mentor to sometimes to help facilitate that, because it is a journey. And you know, Jacqueline, that you know, that journey of cleansing one's beliefs that are erroneous and stuff, it can lead to a lot of remorse. There is that part. I think that the pain needs to be felt, you know, that heaviness needs to be faced, that fear needs to be faced to see what it really is. But I agree with you, and I would even expand on what you said. I think we need to laugh a whole heck of a lot, and I think we need to have a whole heck of a lot of fun. I like saying heavens yes. You know, everyone's saying hell yeah. I like saying heavens yes, because like if we're not having fun, my friend Matt Diddlegen, who's going to be on the show at some point, he gave me this quote many years ago. He's a beautiful entrepreneur who is, you know, he built a business and, you know, did very well. Then he wanted to build communities he's out west in the Calgary area. And he said, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And I think that this is really important when we're talking about like enlightenment, especially the world enlightenment that I was, you know, inspired with in my early 20s. Like, and it seems like this impossible thing, like world enlightenment, and you know, there's so many of these concepts are like poo-pooed, you know, like, well, you can't have a utopia without one person suffering for it. It's like, well, is that true? You know, like if love is real, and I believe it's the only creative power, and it's so funny, we can't define it. It's just a word, love, but like you said, when you really attune to that self, the true self, the energetics of us, and really look at and really, you know, contemplate and meditate on its enormity, its eternalness, its infinite potential and of expression. It's like it's beyond any words. But I feel like it wants, like when we're returning home, you're not going to get home without laughing it off. You're not going to get home without having fun, because it wants us to feel good. And I, you know, I think this concept for me about we, and part of my wanting to ask you that question is, you know, earlier before we even started the show, we were talking about our children and how they reflect to us our inner work, the things that we haven't yet done. They give a lot of room for laughter and play. Of course, like our daughter, Luciana, she's got such a sense of humor. She knows she's funny. She loves making us laugh. And yet she will also show us the parts of ourselves like, oh, you're frustrated? Okay, well, here you go. Here.
Good. Deal with it. Deal with it. It's on you. No, I love that. No, and I mean, listen, even with fear, you know, I mean, who says fear has to be this beast, this dark beast or whatnot, you know? Sit down and make yourself a good cop, and make a good cop for your fear too, and sit on a table and imagine that fear is sitting across from you, and start talking.
Yeah.
You're going to absolutely end up laughing together. You're going to realize that it's part of you and it's an okay part of you. You're going to realize when to use it and when to not. And that's the thing, is like, we're literally invited to live in imagination, to bring that back and be a little creative about it and be a little bit light about it. You know, I remember when 365 came out, I had all these books at home. I still do, because I have a Shopify store and I sell them. But the thing is like, so I had all these books back then at home, you know, happy as can be. And then I had a bunch in the car too. So I gave them out, you know, and then I gave a homeless person, I gave 365 with a care package and whatnot, some money and all that kind of good stuff in there.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
literally, like, you know, we stopped at a red light and I gave him a 365 book, you know, and the person, they took it, you know, and they were like, oh, thank you so much. And then I came home and I told, I don't remember who it was so many years ago, one person in the family, I said, yeah, I gave him a 365 book too. And they're like, well, but you know, they're in a state that they probably don't want to read that. I said, you know what? Either they read it or they burn it. And when they burn it, it gives them warmth overnight. So either way, I accomplished what I wanted to do. And I think that's just life, you know. It's like, you look at it a little bit like, you know, it's like there's always, each stick has two ends, and it's like, what are you going to choose about it? You know, you look at something and say, oh, this is really a hard situation, it's really bad. Yeah, it is. As a human being, that's how you feel. But on the other end of the stick, there's another story. And if you start focusing on that, doesn't mean you have to deny this, you cannot feel this. No, feel it, for give yourself 2 seconds of, you know, like, okay, I'm going to go down for 2 seconds, you know, and then I'm going to go to the other end of the stick. And then I'm going to look at that. What is that? I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm invited to go home. I'm invited to possibly bring on a big change, right? Or you know what? Oh, that book, if he burns it, the other end of the stick is he's going to get heat from it. There's always another end. And if you learn how to focus on that, I think, like, you know, when you go in a toy store, for instance, right? There's so many things that you could focus on that are going wrong in that store. But when you go in a toy store, you're naturally just focusing on the good.
Yeah.
But the other is there too. And I think that is just something that you can literally do easily when you're aware of it. And that's called, to me, that's part of going home.
Yeah. And it's, I definitely would say it's part of mastery too, is where you're choosing, when you recognize that you are a chooser and you have that as part of your identity, well then, you know, you're not reacting all the time. You're realizing you're the creator of the choice in the background doing it. And there is, like, I think this is the value of meditation. For me personally, like when I practice going into stillness and silence, you can start listening to some of those thoughts. And to me, there's something I call a sponsoring thought. Before a thought happens, there's a choice that's made for that thought to happen. A lot of us have these conditioned thoughts and that become beliefs that are just on like a repeat cycle. And so it seems like, it can seem, when you're not on that level of awareness that's happening, it can seem like these thoughts are just happening to us. But when we can really get still in the pond silence, you can see there's this very, very small seed of a moment. Oh, pardon me. There's a small seed of a moment that happens when there is an awareness that the chooser is always there.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. I always like if you think about, okay, trampoline, and I use that a lot. So you go on a trampoline, you're all happy. At some point, there's that moment where it doesn't feel so good anymore. So catch that moment, and then you say, oh, I'm going to get off the trampoline, do something different. When you're sad, there's that moment where it says, ooh, now it's not feeling so good anymore. I am going down into the abyss. Well, choose something different. Go for a walk or whatnot. And I think a lot of people also like what I notice is a lot of people, when I talk to them and I start working with them, before we even get into the energetics, right? It's almost like they need to be given the information that they can allow themselves to be okay. You know, that they could, it's like, You can be okay, you can be happy even in a world that's, you know, crazy right now. You can be happy. You're actually invited to be happy, you're invited to smile, you're invited to be joyous, you're invited to throw a party, you're invited to meditate and take personal time, you're invited to go inside and be, some people call it selfish, to make it about you. No, it's actually important. And I think that's another thing, that it's like you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to do that. We're just, you know, taught the other way, but you're supposed to do that, right? And I think it's important. But I also think that unless someone really gets to the point where they understand themselves energetically, I think it's hard, because then you have only the information on a physical life level. You know, I'm Jacqueline, I'm this body, that's how I look, and that's the role I'm playing. And so I'm studying that, and I'm, you know, changing there. But unless, as Jacqueline, I know who I am energetically, half of me is missing. Actually, it's more than half, because it's the bigger part is missing. And that is where I feel that my work is so potent, because I help people. I basically do create energetic profiles. So I go name and birthdays and what was the energy of your first breath. That was a promise to yourself, right? So I create these reports, and they get an ebook, who they are, and then I teach them how to embody that. Because to me, it's like most people, they only have like a 30% knowledge of who they really are, and you can change and change and change. However, if you don't know about the other 70, it's really, really a hard way to change, because you have missing information. And that's something that I've been, you know, teaching children and adults, and especially women, because to me they're like, sorry, I know, but they're like the change makers usually in the family. They're the ones that are saying, okay, we're going to go for this, and when they change, everything changes. So to me, it's like teaching that information and holding space and supporting that person into them embodying who they really are energetically is changing everything, because suddenly that person has 100% overview of who they really are, and who the role they're playing, and what they're here to do. And to me, that's when everything comes together. So if anyone feels like they're a little, you know, like they're lost or whatnot, or I'm meditating, I'm changing, I'm doing all this good stuff on a physical level, know that that's great. It's not you, there's nothing going wrong. It's just you have a little bit of a missing information. So go get that information energetically, and that is inward.
Yeah. No, I think it's beautiful. And what you said about helping women, I think it's vital, because women are the water carriers, right? They're the ones who they hold the households together for the most part, and they're the ones who give birth to all the new life that comes in the world. And just like, you know, I mean, for those who are supporting men doing their work, I mean, men have a different role. They embody a different aspect of divine consciousness. They have different roles that you know, that are meant to be an expression of that. So I think it's really beautiful, Jacqueline, and you really have a unique gift in terms of like the way you articulate and the help people to gain that information as a guide. I think that, you know, even that sentiment of helping people connect with that first breath and what's the energy of that breath, and seeing everything as energy is really it's really inspiring. I'd love to show you some of my light language one day, because I feel like you would probably be able to get it. I feel like it's a vibrational language that's rooted to some of my Arcturian experiences. And yeah, it's I feel it's a real honor to get to know someone who has so much experience helping people on that energetic level. So thank you for doing what you do. I feel like it's really, you know, what you said about celebrating, about making those opportunities to take care of yourself and everything. I think it's so profoundly important, what you say, and I hope that our listeners really take that to heart. I mean, I wish that they do, truly, because even actually, you know, it reminds me of another little section in the letters where he says that for us to throw parties of unconditional love, leave the egos, come, you know, celebrate together, spend time in just presence, and you know, feed the people and just enjoy our gifts one another. And if we can all be in a circle where we're all aware of that 70% that you're talking about, and that we are all just recognizing the perfection of what is, seeing um, our human expression as part of that perfection, and allowing us to just be, that to me is, there's so much value in a community coming together to do that. And that's all I really wish to be, is that kind of presence that evokes that in others. I feel like more and more of us who remember and come home to one another. I didn't share this with you too. Like, that's our guiding devotion as a community is really about co-creating home. And it's really a remembering process, right? But it's through our thoughts and feelings that we create that. And home is, I like to expand on it from heaven on Mother Earth to heaven omni Mother Earth, so that just heaven is the remembered reality of what is. Like, I feel like so many of us forget the reality that love is real, and I've even seen documentaries of like a generation that has abandoned this idea that love is real because they think they've been deceived by this picture of this Hollywood, it's about romance and it's about, but I've experienced myself, fasting. We talked a little bit about fasting before the show too. And I've experienced in, you know, quite some profound moments of realization and remembrance, that power of love. And I feel, if anything, it takes courage to allow ourselves to be an embodiment of love, because we can be in those places where there are shadows. There are people who are holding on to false identities, and when you are just a beaming beacon of love, it can shake that identity up in them, and it can cause
Yeah.
people to maybe react. But I also feel like it's such a gift when you allow yourself to have that courage to be that. And I see that in you. I feel like you are just this bright light in the world. And so, how would you, for someone who maybe doesn't, to, like you say, it's always an inner game. Um, and I believe it, for most of us, it's a gradual one. We don't just turn on like light bulbs, because that would just be too jarring to our experience if we went around, casting the shadows too much. Yeah, just like you're just like turn on in the living room and everyone's
But no,
watching
it's
TV.
available.
It
It is
is.
available.
But for most of us, it's a gradual thing, so our lives aren't too disrupted, and it's more of a loving process. I think that's part of the natural love. So for those who are maybe even recognizing from listening to you in this conversation that this is available to them, that happiness is available to them, how can people connect more with you and this work, and start on that path and with the best foot forward, so that they are honoring themselves during a time where there is a lot more apparent polarity and availability to choose?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think my favorite way to get in contact with people, because I know it's super potent, is I actually offer a free energetic assessment,
Okay.
30-minute session, and it's free. There is no, you don't have to buy anything or whatnot. And in that energetic assessment, I actually already go like snack version into your energy of your names and whatnot. And then it asks you to answer a couple questions. So, and then I usually look into it, but then it's in the conversation.
Mm,
And people literally leave with, wow, that's what my first name and last name means. That is a
mm,
lot of power. I always thought like, that's wrong with me or whatnot. So
mm,
it changes everything.
mm,
And then we go over the snack version of the issues that you're experiencing in life, and it's related with that because you're not stepping into that, so it's showing you that contrast, right?
mm,
And so if you feel compelled to really get to know me and like also like take advantage of a really quick potent shift, because I'm a really fast worker. I'm result driven, but it's not because of really who I am. It's just what I'm here to do, right? It's working with me doesn't take long. It's like, that's it. It's like when you said that, turning it on, right? It's available. So, and that's the thing. That's how I work. It's like, because I believe in that and I know it's possible. And so you get a lot of profound information, and it will change your life within 30 minutes. It really will. And then, yeah, of course, there's other ways then to work with me, deeper embodiment and how to then implement it. And then obviously freakyhealer.com is my shop, and I have my own Shopify store. My books are available everywhere worldwide, but I created my own shop. And the reason why is because I really like connection with my readers. I really do. So I thought, okay, I'm going to just create my own shop, because then they can be in touch with me, ask questions. So there's all my books and journals are there for children and adults. And there's free stuff too. I have a 365 program too, where every day you're giving some good, they call it energy sparks, you know, it's like, think about every day you have an energy spark. It's like, it's going to change you fast. So, but there's a 7-day free version there too, that you can do. There's a happiness quiz. So, and you know what, ultimately people just email me. They're like, hey, Jacqueline, listen, help. I'm there to help, because I really love people and I love my work. And I know that I can get literally every person into their direction of who they are, you know, be it like you're looking for a surrogate. I go into there and choose and help energetically which one, because they're spirit babies, you know, we got to make a connection, be it adoption, right? I'm in adoption cases, so making sure that everything goes well there. Be it you want a new job, be it you want your love, be it you want more money, right? There's all this other stuff too, but also like going home and knowing who you are energetically, because that's the foundation of who you are. And on that foundation, they always ask me, so that energetic profile, will that change? Not really, but you will build on top of the foundation. So you know who you are, and then you expand and calibrate on top of that foundation. In reality, I think it should be taught at schools. Every child, every parent should know energetically who they are, literally.
Well, I really appreciate your gifts, and you have a bunch of amazing, beautiful offers for people. I really encourage our guests to go and check that out. You are also totally welcome to come and join us with Lightheart Vision, because we're all about building these conscious bridges between, conscious, artists and healers like yourself. And I love that you have so many of these beautiful, expansive perspective. So we're in an exciting time, Jacqueline, and I feel honored to be sitting down with you. I love to ask our guests a final question before we look at wrapping things up for today, and that's, if you had a megaphone and you could talk to the whole world all at once and everyone could hear you, what would you say?
I would say, be you boldly, unapologetically, and trust that you being you, you can be loud and unapologetic, because you will actually follow your heart and you will do good things. And that would be really it. And then you deserve to be you, you know, that's why you're here. Actually, it's almost like a sin not to be you. Right? It's like, it's that, I think it's in Neville Goddard, it's like he says, it's a sin if you're not you, right? So listen, it's a sin if you're not you. So be you, be bold, be unapologetic, be loud about it. And a lot of people then think like, yeah, but can I trust that? Yes, you can. And you know why? Because from the substance of being you, it comes from your heart, it comes from your soul. You can literally just speak without thinking, be without thinking, because you know that you're actually in your journey, and in that journey, that red carpet will roll out for you, for sure. It has to be its law. So
I love that. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying it's a sin not to be you. And I mean, the root word of that word sin means missing the mark. So it's a super sin if your name is Mark and you're not being yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think he calls it aim. Know your aim, know your aim, and go for it, because not knowing your aim and not going for it is actually the sin. because then you're not bringing to the world who you really are and the gifts, because everyone has a gift, you know.
Yeah.
I'm here for this, you're here for that, you're here for that. So, and once you know that, and you can do that unapologetically, loud and whatnot, because you never have to worry, because these words and actions come from your heart.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can trust that. That's if you can trust anything, that's it. You know, you can trust you and your soul and your heart. So
yeah. Beautiful, profound wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing everything, Jacqueline. I look forward to continuing to get to know you, and I just really appreciate your presence. It's your happiness and your energy is contagious. So I see how you bring that out in others. So yeah, thank you for being who you are. I really appreciate that.
Same. Thank you so much for having me. And I mean, what you guys are doing, the work and everything is wonderful. And I love the conversation we have, because it was light, it was fun, but it was also deep. And I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Me too. Beautiful conversation. All right. Well, unless you have anything else to share with our guests, I would love to invite our daughter, Luciana, to just say thanks for watching, everyone. So I'm going to invite her up here. Thanks for watching. You say ciao, ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.